It's probably the hardest thing that I've ever worked on. I like to think of it as sort of a work of art. It's something hundreds of people created. It's a wonderful texture and depth to this world. It was the most work, it was the most difficult, but it was the most fun, it was the most rewarding. And of all projects, it's the one that I'm the most proud of.
Greetings and welcome to the Film School. I'm Joe, and going to talk about The Dark Crystal: Age of Resistance on Netflix right now. I'm going to try and keep spoilers to a minimum because I really think that this needs to be seen. I'm mainly just going to share with you my thoughts of the series and why I love it and why I've watched it twice since it dropped. I am a fan of the original Dark Crystal, the 1982 classic. Jim Henson considered it to be his finest achievement and the film he was most proudest of working on. And that's saying a lot considering how much he gave us that I just absolutely love. I'm always leery of prequels and sequels, especially when there's so many years between them. Sometimes they work out and sometimes they don't. Phantom Menace. But this... it has to be seen to be believed. This is I think if Jim Henson was here, in the words of Brian Froud, if Jim Henson was still around, he'd be very, very excited about this. I'm very pleased. It takes place, I will say, as much as you will probably find out through trailers and things, this is a prequel series. It takes place approximately 50 years, at least this first season, and it is a first season. There will be more. It takes place approximately 50 years before the film. And if you're not familiar with the film, you don't necessarily need to see the film first. I would recommend it, though, because I feel like this series is based on your knowledge and understanding of the history of the planet Thra and of the Gelflings and the Skeksis and the Mystics, also known as the Uru, and the Podlings, and, of course, Mother Ogra. I have obsessed over this over the last week or so that it's been out because it just is so exciting. It reminds me of being a child, but at the same time it's new and fresh and very adult. Part of the reason why The Dark Crystal has become a cult film instead of a big Hollywood classic is because even though it was a Jim Henson film that he co-directed with Frank Oz, both coming from the Muppets and Sesame Street, it's not a children's film per se, but it's not an adult film either. It's sort of a family film, but it's a darker edged film, and this series pushes that even further. They have taken everything that made the first movie so special, and they have just pushed the envelope, and they are using the practical effects. There is CG in here, but it is all background. It is all to add elements to sort of make the world of Thra really robust, because this is at a time before the Skeksis have poisoned the planet with the Dark Crystal. So it's a very lush planet, and there's so much you get to find out about this world, which I fully got immersed in. I was not aware that there were 7 tribes of Gelflings. This is very exciting. Half the people that worked on this series also worked on the original film, including Brian Froud, who did the conceptual designs for the original film along with Labyrinth. And he, again, is the conceptual designer for this, as well as I think he is the head designer. I think he actually worked on creating a lot of these wonderful, wonderful Muppets, or puppets, whichever you want to say. Being that they're Jim Henson Creature Shop, to me, they're always going to be Muppets. Brian Henson, Jim Henson's son, who is the head of the Jim Henson Company, is actually not so much involved in this as much as Lisa Henson, Jim Henson's daughter. In fact, all of his children are a part of the Jim Henson Company, which is amazing. It's a nice legacy. I got to tell you, this looks amazing. It's very modern. It doesn't have the sort of classic early 80s cinematic look that the film has, but it has a cinematic look all its own. The voice cast is just unbelievable. Almost everyone is unrecognizable. I say almost everyone because Mark Hamill is clearly recognizable, which is fantastic. I love that Mark Hamill is the scientist in this. But they've got people like Sigourney Weaver doing narration. What's his name? Taron Egerton from The Kingsman and the Robin Hood movie last year, and Rocket Man. Yeah, the Robin Hood movie was no good, but he's one of the voices. You got Lena Headey, you've got Helena Bonham Carter, Simon Pegg as the Chancellor, which is one of my favorite characters from the original movie, and he just nails it perfectly. You've got surprise performances by Andy Samberg and Bill Hader, and we'll see if you can recognize them. They are my two favorite characters of this whole universe that we've seen so far. Again, there are people like Benedict Wong, from Doctor Who and Doctor Strange and Marco Polo. Just an incredible voice cast in this. I didn't even recognize Keegan-Michael Key. And you'd think, with Keegan-Michael Key or with Bill Hader or Andy Samberg, it's going to be humorous, but not so much. Although Andy Samberg was humorous, but that's, he ran with it. I highly recommend watching this series. Binge it if you must. I did the first time, and I do feel like binging sometimes I would confuse things and forget where things happened and the place and time. And wasn't this 2 episodes after this? And so the second time around, I would just do 1 a day instead of just 5 or 6 in the first day, 2 or 3 in the second day, and wrapping it up in the third. It is so worth watching. I would absolutely give it a 4 out of 4 stars. I think it's an incredible achievement. I think it's a monumental achievement. We haven't seen a production like this for television involving puppets since maybe Fraggle Rock or Jim Henson's Storyteller. It's been so long since there's been something that has been so pure in imagination that it just excites and fascinates and just I love it. That's all I can say. I highly recommend you watch it. I think it's a rewarding experience, especially if you're a fan of the film and you're already familiar with the universe. If not, get familiar with it, because this is going to be around for another couple of years. I don't know how many seasons they plan on doing, but where they left off, I cannot wait for the next season. The sad note is if, like me, you're familiar with The Dark Crystal, you do know where it's heading, and it has a bit of that Star Wars prequel trilogy. You knew where that was heading. You knew that the Jedi were going to go and all this kind of thing, so you kind of know that. But aside from that, it is such a fantastic series, and they've done such an amazing job that I hope they win all kinds of awards for this. I hope they get all the recognition they truly deserve. So just thought I would share that with you guys, and let me know what you think. If you're a fan, if it's something you were looking forward to, if you think it's blasphemous, as I've heard some people say, or a betrayal to the source material, or if you think it connects the dots quite nicely like I do. By all means, I'd love to hear from you and hear some response. And I promise, if you comment, I will comment back. I will reply. Wherever you go, I will find you. Sorry, I was doing a little Last of the Mohicans there, wrong film. But anyways, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you on the next episode. Go for Biff.
Oh, and always like and subscribe, please.
Like and subscribe.